Good afternoon. Senior Citizens Presents. Our title today is Our Visit with Sandy and the Missus. I'm Hallie Schenkel, and my guest is Betty Jones, manager of the Wims Meal Site. Today, of course, we're portraying two other characters. Oh, Santa, it's such a relief to know that we can just sit here and enjoy ourselves and reminisce about things. It seems like your time is so taken up all the time, Santa. I just enjoy just sitting here and we'll talk and tell stories and really enjoy this. Won't that be nice?
Oh, ho, ho, won't that be nice? Great, great, great.
Don't you have a poem that you'd like to start with, Santy?
I sure do. Pine trees on a silky road are sometimes nature's poems. I wonder who will buy them now and put them in their homes to scent their parlors with perfume. An angel at the top, pine trees along a silky road make me want to stop and just remember Christmases of decades long ago when there was lots of caroling and people in the snow. Stopped for Merry Christmases, greetings. It was a world that glowed. Thank God for memories that come with pine trees on a silky road.
That was beautiful, Sandy. I enjoyed that. Do you know that there isn't any perfect evergreen trees? Did you ever realize that?
No, I did not.
Well, long time ago, there was a queen, and she liked to have the most perfect evergreen tree that she could have so it could be brought into the palace, and all the people would go around and sing and enjoy it. So all the pine trees in the forest naturally wanted to be the one that the queen chose. But there was a little pine tree that thought, I'll never make the grade, that's for sure, because I just can't get to be perfect, but I'll try. So there was a big storm, and along come a little rabbit, hopping around, and it hopped around all the bigger trees, and they didn't seem to care whether that little rabbit was there. And behind the rabbit there was hounds a-coming, and the little pine tree felt sorry for the rabbit, and he raised a little branch, and the rabbit run underneath the tree, and it stayed there during the night. And in the morning, why, he hopped out. And the pine tree looked at one of the branches and thought, oh my goodness, I believe it got kind of broke, but maybe it won't be noticed. So a couple days passed by, and pretty soon there was an awful storm. The wind just blew and made an awful noise, and everything to be flying through the air. And along come a little wren. And the little wren didn't know where to go, and finally it flopped on the top of the tree. And the pine tree thought, well, if I can just open my branches a little bit for that little bird, I'll do it. So the little bird stayed for a day. Then 2 days passed. There was a heavy snow. And the pine tree looked around, and pretty soon he saw a little doe that was lost from its mother. And the pine tree thought, oh, I can't let that little fellow be out there in that snow. So he raised a bigger branch, and the doe ran underneath the tree and slept there all night. But the next morning, broke off a lower branch. Then, of course, the pine tree thought, this is worthless. I know I'll never get to the palace now. But that same day, the queen came by, and she was looking at all the trees, and she saw that little forlorn evergreen tree there, and she said, that's ridiculous. She said it should be cut down and burned. And she rode off a little ways, and finally she turned around and she looked, and she saw a little bunch of fur, and she saw feathers on the branches, and she saw tracks around the tree. And she said, that's the tree I want. That's the tree I want for the palace. If that little tree can shelter birds and small animals and a deer, that's the tree I want in my palace. And so the tree was put up, and everybody danced around and just thought it was the most beautiful tree there ever was. And the people thought the tree represented father for protection and represented mother to be close to her bosom. But the queen thought, no, it represented Christ. No matter how battered we are or anything, he's always right there to give us protection. How How do you like that story?
Oh, I thought that's wonderful.
Well, that was one that I had read a long time ago, and I liked that. How about another poem, Santa?
This is a poem I remember. I remember a Christmas long years ago, wrapped in a mantle of soft white snow, where the trees in their naked beauty stood, ready to give of themselves for wood, while the fire inside crackled and roared, and all were happy and none were bored. Happy-faced neighbors paused at our door, with their horses and sleighs and carols galore. I remember the Christmas tree aglow, when little red candles and white cotton snow, and that twig of mistletoe hanging high, while I trembled lest he should pass it by. And Santa Claus came, 'twas really my dad, with a sack full of gifts that made us so glad, a soft woolly scarf, warm gloves and such, just a little thing that they meant so much. If I could have my wish unfurled, I'd want Christmas like that for all the world, that the holy night and the holy birth would again mean good, will, and peace on earth.
Oh, that was beautiful, Santa. I really liked that one. Would you like to hear about the story of the miracle of the tablecloth?
Oh, yes, I think that'd be great.
Remember, we had this in a long time ago, but I think you'd kind of forgotten it. So here's how it goes. This was taken in Germany, and there was a minister that had just gotten a church, and the church was in battered condition, and he and his wife, they worked and scoured the floor and washed the windows and fixed the church up for Christmas. It was going to be Christmas before long. And what do you know? A big storm comes, and it took part of the roof off, and water soaked down into the church, and it got behind the sanctuary and knocked out a big piece of plaster. And that minister was so downhearted because, you know, Christmas was coming and everything, so he thought, what are we going to get to cover over that spot behind the altar? He didn't know what he was going to do. But anyway, he went about his little chores he had to do, and one evening he opened up the church, and he went into the church for a little while, and then finally he came out. And the next day they was going to have an auction. So he thought, well, my wife and I will go at the auction and see what they have there. And they went there, and he saw a tablecloth, the most beautiful tablecloth, embroidered in beautiful colors and gold strings running through it and everything, and he thought that would be the thing to put behind the altar. So he bid for it, and it cost $6.50, so he bought it. And he took it to the church, you know, and the next evening he opened up the door and was going in the church to fix up the wall, and there was an old lady at the street corner waiting for a bus. And he walked up to her and he said, the bus won't be here for an hour. Would you like to come into the church? And she said, oh, yes, I would, in her broken English. So she went in and she sat down in the pew, and he picked up the tablecloth and started to hang it behind the wall. And all of a sudden she says, that's mine, that's mine, that's my banquet table cloth cover. And he said, what? And she said, yes. And he said, well, tell me the story. And she said, well, I come from Vienna. She says, my husband and I, and she said, we were afraid of the Nazis. So she said, we was going to Switzerland. And he said, you go ahead, and I will bring our belongings, and I will come later. Well, she said, I'm afraid my husband passed away. And the minister said, oh, I'm so sorry. You can have your tablecloth if you want it. And she said, oh, no. I don't have banquets anymore, and I couldn't use it. And it looks beautiful back there. So she left the church. Well, they had their Christmas service as it was planned, and there was an old gentleman sitting down in the front of the church. He was the last one to leave, and the minister walked up to him and said, well, how did you like the service? He said it was beautiful. But you know, that hanging behind there reminds me of my wife's tablecloth. She had one just like that, I'm almost sure. And the minister said, your wife? And he said, yes. Well, where is your wife? And he said, she, I think, died. And he said, well, I met an old lady this morning. She was on the corner waiting for a bus. So he said, She told me that this tablecloth was hers at one time. And the old man said, oh, could it be possible? Could she still be alive? And the minister said, just a minute. And he went to his office and he found an address. And he took the old man in an old rattletrap bus that he had there, and he went to this house where this address was, and he opened up the door, and there the two people hugged and kissed each other. They had found each other. And the minister said at the end of the story, was it a miracle or was it by chance? He said, my choice was it was a miracle.
Oh, wasn't that nice? I think that's a real cute ending.
It kind of brings
good.
Tears in your eyes.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Another poem, Sandy, to make me feel better.
Okay. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through our house not a creature was sleeping, not even my spouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with screws. If you can't find the nails, what else do you use? The children were restless, awake in their beds, while visions of spanking them danced in our heads. I worked in my bathrobe, my husband in jeans, had gone down to the den with directions and dreams to assemble a bike that came in small pieces, with deflated tires and fenders with creases. Soon down in the den there rose such a clatter, I sprang from my task to see what was the matter. Away to my husband I flew like a flash. He was shuffling through our cardboard. His actions were rash. The bike on the rug by his new frustrated dad soon gave me a hint as to why he was mad. He needed a kickstand. He had to be near. I shuffled some papers. He saw it appear. We twisted the screws. We were lively and quick, and we soon knew assembly would be quite a trick. Fast as eagles in flight the pieces were found, and we whistled and shouted for parts all around. New socket, new pedal, new tires, new brakes, on handles, on kickstands, on horns, oh, but wait. At the top of the toolbox he fumbled around. I need 2 more screws, he said with a frown. And like all good parents determined to please, when they met with an obstacle late Christmas Eve, we shouted and yelled some complaints to each other. There was never more frustrated father and mother. And then in a panic we heard on the stairs the prancing and hopping of feet, about 2 pairs. I opened the door and was turning around when kids burst from the wall with a leap and a bound. They were dressed all in flannel from their necks to their knees, and their nightgowns were soiled with sugar and cheese. Excuses poured forth from each pair of lips. They stood in defiance with hands on their hips. Their eyes were wide open, and each little child jumped when I yelled with a voice hardly mild. They were frightened but cute, too much bigger than elves, and we laughed when we saw them in spite of ourselves. A wink of an eye and a pat on the head soon let them both know they had nothing to dread. They saw not a thing, but went straight to their beds, and we finished the bike and put bows on the sleds. Then wheeling the bike by the tree out of sight, my hubby announced we should call it a night. He sprang to his bed, to the clock gave a whistle, as the time had flown by like a large tin missile. But I heard him explain as he turned out of sight, "Merry Christmas, my dear, but next year, no bike."
Santa, aren't you glad they put it together instead of you?
Yes, very much so.
You're speaking about the bike and assembling it. This reminds me of a little story that was taken a long time ago. This was about the parakeet that was called Dreddle. Did you remember that one?
No, I can't say I did.
Well, this story was taken in Brooklyn, New York. And it was during the Hanukkah. And the man and his son were playing on the floor with a little game where one of the things in the game was a little top called a dreddle. And during the time they was playing their game, why, the father took a lamp and put it in the window, consisting of candles. And while they were playing there and enjoying themselves, the little boy looked up and he said, "Oh, look, Dad, there's a bird at the window." So the father got up and took the lamp away and opened up the window and put his hand out, and the bird came into the house, and it flew around and knocked itself down. It flew around so that it hit itself against the wall and knocked itself on the floor, got itself up and flew around some more, and finally it flew on the little boy's head. And oh, he was so happy about that. The mother was in the kitchen and she was making potato pancakes. She comes rushing out and she says, "What's all this?" And said, "Well, there's a bird in the house." "Well, how'd it get in here?" "Well, Daddy left it in through the window." So the bird flew, as I said, flew on the boy's head, and the little boy put his hand up to his head, and the little bird got on his finger. And the father said, "That bird has been trained to do that. There's no question about that." So then he said, "Well, we'll just have to advertise for that bird because it belongs to somebody, that's for sure." And so the mother went in the kitchen and she brought out a little pan with some water and some seed for the bird, and the bird was so happy about it. And finally it saw this little top on the floor and took its beak and pushed it around, and the little boy said, "Oh, look, he's playing with the dreidel. Let's call him Dreidel." So that was the bird's name, Dreidel. So during the night, he flew up on a frame in the dining room and went to sleep. So the next day they got a cage for the bird, and the father said, "We've got to find the owner of that bird if it's possible." But the night before they went to bed, the bird said in Yiddish, "Zelda, go to sleep. Zelda, go to sleep." And the father said, "That bird come from a Jewish home. There's no question about it. He's talking Yiddish." And so then the next day they advertised for the bird. In fact, they advertised for someone had lost that bird for a long time, but no one claimed it. So, of course, Dreidel became theirs. And they had Dreidel for 9 years. And as the years went by, of course, David grew up and he went to college. And while he was at college, he met a young lady by the name of Zelda Rosen. And he told her about the bird that had come through the window. She says, "That's my bird. We lost it 9 years ago." And he said, "Oh, is that so?" He said, "Well, sometime you come into my house and meet my folks, and you can see the bird." So they made it a plan to come and visit. So the folks and her came to the house, and when she saw the bird, the parakeet, she said, "Hello, Tisp. Hello, Tisp. T-S-I-P. Hello, Tisp." And the bird flew over to her, and stood on her head and went on her shoulder and everything. "Yes," she says, "it's my bird." And the father said, "Do you want your bird back? You're welcome to have her." "No." She said, "I don't want the bird now." She said, "I'm going to school. I couldn't take care of the bird." But she said, "Maybe later." Well, the later consists of David marrying Sylvia. And they have the bird today. And every Christmas, little Dreidel gets its toy, its little spinning top that it enjoys so very, very much. And just think, the bird brought those two people together in this world. I love that story, don't you?
Oh, yes, that's a real nice story. That's about like the other one with the tablecloth.
Almost similar to it.
That's real nice.
Sandy, all these things are fine. All the fine presents are wonderful. And we have, while we're sitting here, we know what love is and consideration and protection and things like that. But why don't you read to me the real story for Christmas?
Okay, the story of Christmas. "And it came to pass in those days that there went on a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, into the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because it was of the house and lingering of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And, lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone around about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God, and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known aboard the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all that they heard, it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things, and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had done and seen, as it was told unto them. Luke 2, 1 through 20.
Oh, Santa, it's a beautiful story. And I'm sure that all of us know that that is the way it's supposed to be. The little presents and everything happens to help, but not entirely. That isn't the true meaning of it. You received a letter the other day, Santa, and I opened it up. I'm sorry. Would you like to have me read it to you?
Oh, would you?
All righty. It says, Dear Santa, all those gifts were lovely, but sometimes with all packages, the furs and the trees, it still is not Christmas. Christmas is more than nylon blouse, a bottle of French perfume, or a gold watch. This year, Santa, first of all, bring a package of faith. Faith enough to believe in love, in tomorrow, in people, and in ourselves. And bring a box of tolerance also. Tolerance to make us understand the different ways of life, and some good judgment in a box, if you please, so we can use our tolerance wisely. Let us not be tolerant to that which is wrong, disloyal, or unkind. We have a little courage, but that is something in these days we need a big supply. We need more kindness, too. Sometimes ours get mighty low. Give us enough to be kind and gentle on those days that we want to shout and blow our tops. Make it a large package, enough that we can use it every day, enough to take care of those days when others forget theirs, and let us use it then. At Christmas time, there should always be one gift that's for fun. Guess what that is, Santa?
What?
Laughter. For that silly gift, wrap up a couple of pounds of laughter. I like the hearty kind, if you please. Never mind wrapping or the ribbon bows. Any kind of wrappings will do. We thank you, Santa Claus. And it's signed, all of us.
Oh, that's neat. I have a poem of the good old days.
Good, that
Would you
sounds
like to hear
good.
that?
You bet I do. I'm in for that.
And this is about food.
Oh, well, I'm in for that too.
Christmas in the kitchen was Mother's favorite room, where she would do her cooking from morning way till noon. She was so very happy with all the things she'd cook, cookies, pies, and puddings, all from Grandma's book. Some of it for stockings and some for Christmas Day, most of it for neighbors that she would give away.
Is that it?
That's it.
You want another story?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is about the lonely little weenie. A butcher was, during the afternoon, while he was thinking about what he was going to have for supper, and just was kind of stalling around, and pretty soon a man came in the store that had been there every year coming for turkeys mostly. And when Bill, we'll call him, came into the store, why, John said, "Well, turkey this year?" And Bill said, "Yes, we're going to have turkey, but you know what else I'd like to have?" And he said, "Weenies, I suppose." He says, "That's right, I want weenies." And he said, "You know, I kind of forgot what that story was about." So the man said, "Well, this is the story." He says, "During the time we had Depression," he said, "my wife would go to the dime store and she would get a 10-cent present from a little girl. And then we'd take the weenies and she'd make little dogs out of them and they'd be on the table. Every year we do that. And now my daughter has grown up and got grandchildren, but still we've got to do that." And the butcher said, "Say, that don't sound bad. I think I'll close my store up tonight and take some weenies home."
That'd be all right. I mean, if you can't afford something else, wieners would be all right.
Here's one I like, what we give our children. It's called gifts. What shall we give the children? Christmas almost here. Toys and games and playthings, as we do every year. I will give them more patience, more sympathetic ear, a little more time for laughter or tenderly dry a tear. I shall take time to teach them the joy of doing some task. I'll try to find time to answer more of the questions they asked. Time to read books together and take long walks in the sun. Time for the bedtime story after the day is done. I shall give to my children, weaving a closer tie, knitting our lives together with gifts that money can't buy. You know, Santa, you have a big week or so ahead of you, and you're going to be tired. What do you say we just quit for tonight? Get a good night's sleep. Does that satisfy you?
Oh, yes.
I am so
yes.
glad, Sandy, to be able to talk with you tonight, and it has been so nice for both of us. What say we just kind of put a little music on? You like that, don't you? I do too.
Almost put you to sleep.
That's right. Let's wish the folks out there a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.